2021-22 season had promised so much for QPR, but ultimately ended in disappointment as the club missed out on the playoff spots. But how did a team which looked like top 6 certainties end up finishing here? We delve into exactly what went wrong for QPR during the second half of the season. A 4-0 win over Reading at the end of January saw QPR sit 4th in the Championship and just 2 points off Blackburn Rovers in 2nd, with a game in hand on Tony Mowbray's side. But more noticeable problems started to arise when February came, which started with the 2-0 FA Cup defeat away at a struggling Peterborough side. 2 dire defeats to bottom club Barnsley and then Millwall would soon follow, and the latter would be the last time that striker Lyndon Dykes would play for QPR until the defeat to Fulham at the start of April because of a hamstring issue. The cracks were starting to show, but manager Mark Warburton was keen to encourage a sense of calm after the defeat at Millwall.
Without being rude, Ian, come on. They are where they are. Everyone just said to me, oh, you're in a great position, that other boys wasting it. Who got them there in the first place? They did. They got 17 points out of 21. And suddenly, in 2 games, I'm now being told, well, are you going to make changes? Come on. In what world are we living? Where are they in the league tonight? 4th? They're 4th in the league, and people start saying, hang on a second, change him, he's not good enough. They've got us to where we are now. Their efforts, their work ethic, their application has got us into 4th. They lost a couple of games. I'm looking at teams last night dropping points. That's the nature of the Championship. And it's this panic and this, what do we do now? Just calm down and keep playing football. They're a good team. They haven't become a bad set of players overnight. But it's this mentality of, reactionary and what do we do now? Just calm. Just calm. They're 4th. They're 4th with the game in hand. Come on. That's where they are. At the start of the season, would you have taken it? Do you know what I'm saying? But it's just, I know it's football, I know it's fans, it's opinion, and that's fantastic. That's why we love the game. But sometimes just a level head, calm down, you look at the table, you're 4th with a game in hand.
And more dropped points at home to a bottom half Hull City side would provoke a similar reaction from Warburton.
No wins in 4, frustrating afternoon.
It's a nice start to press conference, isn't it? Yeah. How's your day been so far? I think, I can't remember where we are on the table. You'll have to remind me, I think we're 4th. Sarcasm for sarcasm, but I think we're 4th, and that's where I'm looking at quite bemused. That a team that's 4th in the table, until the game in hand, is doing okay. Much better second half. Anyway, there's one dominant team in the second half, one team's going to win it, and after 2 lacklustre displays, you needed that level of performance second half.
But despite Warburton's call for calm, there were very noticeable problems on the pitch. An injury to Dykes had exposed the team's lack of a dependable striker, and the decision not to add to the attack in January, as former QPR striker Kevin Gallen advocated for on the West London Sport QPR podcast, was looking like the wrong call.
Other than that, I wouldn't mind seeing another striker just to give the team a boost. It's always great to see, if you're the manager and you look over at your bench and you're 0-0 and it's 20 minutes to go and you look and you've got options on the bench of a striker who can nick a goal.
Despite a decent run of goal-scoring form from Andre Gray, there were question marks around his ability to consistently impact games, while Charlie Austin continues to struggle in his second spell with the club. But Director of Football Les Ferdinand explained to West London Sport in February that Warburton felt as though it was not an area where the team most needed to strengthen.
I think we spoke about that, but the manager was happy with what he had. As I said, no player comes through the door without the manager wanting it. That wasn't the position that he felt he wanted to add to in terms of his squad. It was more a number 10. And like I said, we looked around for what we needed. And we wasn't able to get the number 10 that we required. But from my perspective, I know centre forwards are key to football clubs, but the manager was happy with what he had.
Yeah, it was just a case of that, was he was just happy with the 3 guys that he had already and just didn't feel like he needed to add another body, essentially.
No, he didn't feel like he needed to add another centre forward. Like I said, he felt more in a number 10 because of the way that the team was set up and the way we aim to play. He felt that more times than not we were going to play with one centre forward and have those number 10s and we were going to fill in those positions.
The strikers were not solely to blame for the lack of goals, however, with an absence of creativity behind them also proving to be an issue. More on that shortly. After a dramatic late win over Blackpool, a trip to promotion-chasing Blackburn had the feel of what could be a decisive game, and it would prove to be, unfortunately for the wrong reasons. The biggest talking point from the 1-0 defeat would be an injury to goalkeeper Seny Dieng, who would not return until the final day against Swansea.
Just wondering, has Seny been able to train this week?
No.
He hasn't. So is he kind of a doubt then for tomorrow?
He's kind of injured.
Is he definitely out?
It's your turn. He's injured, yes.
Okay. Can you just sort of explain what the damage is, what the injury is?
He had a quad injury. He had a quad injury, yeah.
So is there any sort of time frame on that? Is it a serious one?
No, I leave that to medical. I'm never going to give that information out in, you know that. But the medical boys look after him now. He's in the care of the medical team. So we'll see how his progress continues. But right now, he won't be available for tomorrow.
Okay, but big blow that really, isn't he? Because he was playing pretty well.
He's playing well, so is David Marshall, as we spoke about. And there's lots of contention about who should play and whatever. David Marshall's been outstanding for us the moment he came in. So I've got no hesitation, no worries about David whatsoever in.
It was a huge blow for Dieng, who had only just won back his place from David Marshall after returning from AFCON with Senegal. His injury would mark the start of the worst of QPR's goalkeeping issues, with Marshall unable to replicate his form after first arriving at the club, having made a costly mistake against Blackburn before making another in a 2-1 defeat to Cardiff a week later. He would then suffer his own injury in a 3-1 loss at Nottingham Forest to rule him out for the rest of the season, forcing the club to sign another short-term replacement in Kieran Westwood, who also battled injury during his time at the club. The lack of stability in goal and losing a quality keeper in Dieng had a devastating impact on the side. But the Cardiff game prior to the defeat to Forest was the first real sign that something was seriously wrong. Along with Marshall's poor form, a lack of impetus in midfield and attack, along with individual errors at the back from the likes of Dion Sanderson and Rob Dickey, saw Rangers slip to a 2-1 loss, despite leading comfortably in the first half. And Warburton certainly did not sugarcoat his thoughts on the performance post-match.
We lost it, Ian, by dropping the tempo, playing a testimonial pace after 50 minutes, thinking it was almost too easy to move the ball and giving a good opponent too much time and not enough respect, and we paid the price for that, plain and simple. We were dominant in the first half, get the goal, should have got the second, and all we had to do was maintain our tempo. And I don't lose my way very often, but that's not our second half. We can't be that. There's too good a group of players and staff in terms of togetherness to accept that last half an hour, 35, 40 minutes, whatever it was. But once the crowd, not the crowd's fault, they were hopefully enjoying possession. There were a couple of Olays coming in, and suddenly your watches just dropped to testimonial pace, and that's not acceptable by us.
Doubts over whether QPR could maintain their top 6 status had already set in prior to Cardiff, but the latest defeat was a real alarm bell that not all was well at the club.
It's the most disappointing result of the season, I think. Sort of trailing behind the West Brom game at the Hawthorns, another game they threw away because Cardiff aren't very good. They really aren't very good, and that game should have been out of sight. They were cruising in the first half, much better side, and then the crowd are allaying, showboating a little bit, I suppose. But aside from that, to let them back in and let them win the game, were really 2 bad goals.
QPR's playoff hopes were not over by any means, however. Rob Dickey's late winner against Luton again put the team 4th, but the defeat to Forest a couple of days later would see Warburton dealt arguably his biggest injury blow yet, as Willock suffered a season-ending hamstring problem in the same game in which Marshall also picked up a hamstring injury. Yet despite the injuries continuing to rack up, a home defeat to Peterborough exposed the issues on the pitch. QPR went out to attack and had numerous chances to build up a lead in the first half, but only managed to take one of them. And a vulnerability on the counter-attack, along with some loose passing in midfield, let one of the league's worst teams come back in the second half to pick up a 3-1 away win. It was tough to see how QPR could come back after that, and as it turned out, they couldn't.
I didn't recognise us in the second half, and I said to the players, it starts from me all the way down, it's every player, it's every staff member, but the second half, to lose headers, to lose tackles, to give the ball away cheaply, never really looked like they're cutting them open. Second half, I thought we were slow with the ball movement, an awful penalty to give away. You can't explain that. And then we allow Peter to cut inside and score on his favoured foot. We prepared for the game, analysis, all those points were covered, highlighted individually and collectively, so disappointed beyond belief.
Further 3 defeats would follow after Peterborough before a 2-2 draw at Huddersfield would end the losing run. But a lack of attacking spark with no Willock and Seny at his best highlighted a scarcity of attacking depth in the squad, something that Warburton, despite not being keen to add a striker in January, did want to address. West London Sport revealed in January that the club did want to sign Tom Lawrence to Derby and Jamie Patterson at Swansea, but could not agree deals for either. something Mark Warburton spoke to West London Sport about after the window had shut.
I was looking for an attacking midfielder, Dan, definitely. We had our targets really clearly identified, and a lot of work went on. A lot of work did go on to try and land the right player, but it wasn't going to happen. It became clear 2 or 3 days ago that it wasn't going to happen, and you just don't go out and get another body. Someone said to me, "Well, how about trying him?" It's not just like a car trial centre. Try that car out, see if it works for you. It doesn't work that way. Again, going back to what Ian's question, does the person fit in a dressing room? Does he work well with the players? Has he got a good attitude? Does he bring a layer of quality we don't currently possess? If he's no better than what we have, why on earth are we bringing him in? So as I say, yes, if the right attacking midfielder become available, absolutely. But to counter that, Dan, we never thought, as Ian said earlier, that for 1 second someone like Jeff Hendrick would become available.
Warburton tried to change things in attack. He brought George Thomas in from the fringes and even dropped Chair, but could not fix these issues. QPR went from having one of the most potent attacks in the division to managing to score just 3 goals across a 5-game losing run. Warburton's side managed just 1 shot on target away at Sheffield United and none in the defeat to Stoke, which effectively spelled the end for any remaining playoff hopes. And old problems such as set-piece defending also came back to hurt Warburton and his team. QPR conceded the 9th most goals from set pieces in the Championship this season, according to Who Scored, at 14. Despite this not proving to be an issue during the first half of the season. The 3-1 defeat to Sheffield United in Warburton's final home game as manager showed just how big of a problem set-piece defending had become.
Physicality, delivery, didn't do our job on 2 or 3 occasions. We knew that the goal, the second goal, we'd rehearsed it yesterday. They do the same one, they square it, run round the back, and we switched off. So there's a combination of factors there. But they're very good at what they do. I just felt we invited them on by not taking care of the football, and we had to be better taking care of the football.
Further injury problems during the end of season run-in affecting players like Rob Dickey, Johan Barbe, Moses Odubajo, Stefan Johansson and Lee Wallace created more instability, and it's hard to draw any other conclusion apart from injuries being the main factor behind the complete collapse in the second half of the season. But other factors, like those already mentioned, along with issues like failing to integrate the January signings the club did make, particularly Dion Sanderson, who struggled during his time in West London, also damaged the team. Warburton was also keen to stress the impact of refereeing decisions that went against his side.
It's 1-0. Yeah, it's 1-0. We can see them 14 minutes. We have a big chance with George just before half time, and you go in 1-0 down. And you come out second half better on the front foot. And I appreciate the shots on goal, but I thought we were better going forward. We looked more dangerous. Wanted that energy with Elias and Charlie and one other Dozza coming on, and Jeff, whoever it may be. And then we get that decision, and the linesman didn't give it. The linesman's not given the penalty. How's that given? And look at the replay. And we've been the recipient of some very bad decisions. We've received so many apologies for poor decisions, and I'm sure we get another one. But that's not good enough to us. At 1-0, that sucks the life out of the game. 2-0, game over, game dead, and it kills our fans. It kills the momentum of the game, and they're very comfortable. So I'm more than frustrated by that decision.
There were also other off-the-field issues which had at least some impact. West London Sport has reported that uncertainty over certain players' futures had an unsettling effect on the squad, while speculation over the future of the manager did too, alongside the obvious on-the-field issues with poor performances from players which had played such a big part in the upturn in form in the second half of last season. Players like Johansson, Austin and Dykes and many others ultimately did not deliver what was hoped of them. As manager, Warburton was obviously not blameless for the collapse in form either. Decisions like moving Willock away from his usual number 10 spot before his injury, swapping Barbe for Sanderson, and an overall inability to fix those issues mentioned which plagued the team during the second half of the season, of course had an impact. A multitude of factors added up to derail what had been such a promising campaign, but there still remains an element of mystery as to just how it went so wrong. Rangers did not need to go on an unbelievable run of form to make the playoffs, given how good the first half of the season was. Yet the extent of the collapse meant playoffs were out of the question before the season had even ended. And with another summer of change approaching, where QPR go from here remains to be seen.